It's expensive to be poor, we've known that for decades. But what's gradually becoming one of the most overlooked economic realities of our time is that it's also increasingly expensive to be middle class. Now, picture this for a second. You're doing everything right. You have a respectable job, you pay your taxes on time, you don't live extravagantly, yet every month you discover that your bank balance behaves like a leaky bucket. No matter how carefully you pour money in, it keeps draining out. That constant drain has a name. It is called the modern version of the poverty premium, and it's making everyday stability shockingly expensive. Traditionally, the poverty premium described how low-income households pay more for the basics: higher interest rates, prepaid utilities, smaller package sizes that cost more per unit, all of it adding up to a penalty for being poor. But something subtle and dangerous has happened over the last few decades. The middle class has been pulled into its own premium. The costs that define a normal life have risen faster than incomes, creating a system where simply maintaining the appearance of stability is one of the most expensive economic positions you can occupy. To understand this, you have to stop thinking about big expenses and start looking at the slow bleed. Some economists call it the fixed costs. These are the kind of costs you can't really escape without dropping out of the middle class entirely. They basically include housing, transportation, healthcare, insurance, education, and childcare. A 2026 analysis tracking long-term wage growth versus cost of living increases found that middle-class purchasing power in the United States has been quietly eroding for about 45 years. When you adjust wages for inflation and compare them to the cost of middle-class necessities, the average worker is effectively earning about $12,000 per year less than they would have in the late 1970s in relative terms. Do the math. $12,000 a year is $1,000 a month. Over a decade, that's $120,000 in lost economic breathing room. What makes this worse is that middle-class expenses are designed to be sticky. You can't easily downgrade without consequences. Move to cheaper housing and you might lose access to better schools. Ditch your car and you might lose your job. Cut insurance coverage and one medical emergency could wipe out years of savings. I'll go out on a limb here and say the system is designed to punish you for trying to pay less. Nowhere is this more obvious than with children. If housing is the biggest slow bleed, childcare is the fastest. In 2026, a report from Care.com found that the average household with children spends 20% or more of its annual income on childcare alone. For many families, that number now exceeds $30,000 per year. To put that into perspective, that's more than the annual tuition at many public universities. And unlike college, this bill shows up before your child can even read. Let's run a simple calculation. Imagine a household earning $150,000 a year, which on paper sounds solidly middle class, even upper middle in many regions. 20% of that income goes straight to childcare. That's $30,000 gone. Subtract federal, state, and payroll taxes, which can easily take another 30% in high-cost states. Now you're down to roughly $75,000 in usable income. From there, you pay housing, transportation, healthcare, insurance, utilities, food, and student loan payments. Suddenly, that comfortable salary starts to feel remarkably fragile. According to the same 2026 data, 31% of families reported dipping into their savings just to cover routine childcare costs. This is one of the most powerful examples of how the poverty premium has crept upward. Middle-class families are indirectly subsidizing a system that assumes unpaid labor and outdated household structures no longer exist. Government policy hasn't caught up either. The temporary expansion of the child tax credit during the early 2020s briefly reduced child poverty and eased middle-class pressure, but its rollback restored the old reality almost overnight. In 2026, the credit still fails to cover even a fraction of childcare costs, effectively acting as a symbolic gesture rather than meaningful relief. And when the math stops working, the middle class doesn't turn to payday lenders like the lower-income households often do. Instead, it falls into a different trap: refinancing through debt. In 2026, personal loans have become the middle class's preferred pressure valve. Rising utility bills, higher grocery prices, and stubbornly high interest rates on credit cards have pushed families to consolidate debt with unsecured personal loans marketed as smart financial management. Here's how the trap works. Credit card interest rates hover in the mid to high 20% range. A family facing rising energy costs and food inflation carries a balance of, say, $10,000. A personal loan offers to refinance that balance at 11 or 12%. On paper, that looks responsible, and in isolation, it is. But zoom out, and you see the problem. The underlying expenses haven't really gone down. Rather, they've only gone up. So the family pays off the credit card, frees up some monthly cash flow, and then continues facing the same inflated costs that caused the debt in the first place. 6 months later, the credit card balance starts creeping back up. Now they're servicing both the personal loan and new revolving debt. This is one of the most dangerous aspects of the middle-class poverty premium. It doesn't look like crisis, rather it looks like control. Its spreadsheets, auto payments, and credit scores remain just high enough to keep the system running, but mathematically it's unsustainable. If your fixed costs grow faster than your income, the difference has to come from somewhere. First, it comes from savings, then it comes from debt, and eventually it comes from downward mobility. Take energy, for example. Governments love to talk about efficiency, sustainability, and the long-term savings of going green. In countries like the United Kingdom, generous green energy grants exist on paper. But here's the catch. Most of these programs require upfront capital. You pay first, then you get reimbursed. That means middle-class households are vastly overrepresented in applications. Meanwhile, households without that initial cash remain locked into inefficient systems, paying higher monthly energy bills for years. It's a perfect efficiency gap. Spend £8,000 up front on insulation, get £5,000 back, and save £600 a year. Over 10 years, that's a £3,000 net gain. But if you can't front the £8,000, you don't only miss the savings, you actively overpay. The system rewards those who already have liquidity, making efficiency itself a kind of financial luxury. It's one of the clearest examples of how modern policy unintentionally prices people out of savings. Geography makes this problem even worse. You see, middle-class income is elastic, and where you live stretches or crushes it. A salary that delivers comfort in a smaller city can become financial suffocation in high-productivity hubs. In New York, London, and other cities where economic output is concentrated, the same paycheck buys dramatically less. Living in New York, for instance, often means paying a geographic premium on rent, transport, and utilities simply because opportunity is concentrated there. In New York, a $90,000 salary feels middle class, yet disappear once rent, commuting, healthcare, and taxes take their cut. If rent alone consumes 40% of income, transportation another 10%, and essentials 30%, you're left with 20%. This effectively penalizes people for living where productivity is highest. All of this is happening against the backdrop of policy decisions that, while not malicious, often favor asset owners over wage earners. High interest rate environments maintained by the Federal Reserve to fight inflation raise borrowing costs for families while rewarding those with capital. Housing supply restrictions at the local level keep prices elevated, turning shelter into an investment vehicle rather than a utility. Healthcare pricing remains opaque, forcing insured families to absorb rising premiums with little ability to shop around. The result is a middle class that is paying more for less security because it's trapped between systems designed for a different era, an era where one income could support a household, where childcare was informal and affordable, where housing costs didn't consume half a paycheck. That world is gone, but the expectations remain. This is why it's increasingly accurate to say that it's expensive to be middle class, not because the middle class lives lavishly, but because it's expected to self-finance stability in a system that no longer supports it. The poverty premium has climbed the income ladder, and in doing so, it's exposed a brutal truth. In modern economies, comfort isn't the opposite of vulnerability. It's often just vulnerability with better branding. Now, I have a question for you. Do
Do you think this modern version of the poverty premium could slowly hollow out the middle class over the coming decade? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this video opened your eyes even a little, hit the like button so more people can see it, and subscribe if you want more honest financial education like this. Remember to check out the earlier video on Diderot effect. Thanks for watching.